So I used to tell myself this lie all the time, and it was actually a simple lie. It didn't hurt me, it actually protected me. And I told myself, Tommy, the reason you don't have any money is because you just don't make enough money. But then I found out that that was obviously a lie. I knew people, for example, a barber of mine, he was earning about $8,000 every single month and he was still broke. And then I knew people like my grandmother who never earned as much money as I had at that very moment, and she had two paid off properties, actually three paid off properties. And here I was, broke, and blaming my income when in reality, that wasn't the issue. The real issue is the management of money, how you manage the little or the a lot that you actually have. If you don't know how to manage money, you won't get very far. And the first thing you need to learn how to manage is your income. So in this video, I'll teach you exactly what to do when you get paid. Now, do me a favor and smash the like button and let's get right into it. Now, the very first thing is this. You ever heard about a Veloci Raptor? It's a Ford F-150 with 6 wheels on it. It's a beast of a truck. It's just ridiculous how crazy this thing is, and it costs over $100,000. Tommy, it's a video about budgeting. Are you telling me to spend this much money? Of course not. It's just an example. And the example is this. In this video, I'm going to give you these 6 accounts or 6 wheels you're going to use to ride yourself to financial freedom. And the very first one is going to be an account for emergencies, an account for investments, debt, expenses, fun, and lastly, charity. In total, you have 6 accounts. And I'm going to ask you right now to open up at least 3 to 4 separate bank accounts, okay? And here's why. You want to have an account for when you actually get paid. That's going to be called your landing account. It's where your money actually lands. And then you want to have a separate account for your emergencies. And you also want to have a separate debit card for your fund so you don't mix it up. And then after that, that's pretty much it. It's pretty much just 3. But have an extra one for when you want to save up for something big that you don't just want to keep in your landing account. Now, what do I use the landing account for? Well, use the landing account to pay things off. For example, if you have debt, use that. You want to give to charity, use that. But then expenses. Your expenses, that is where they're actually going to live, in your landing account. So the minute you get paid, the money lands there, and it just basically spreads across everywhere else. I'll give you a system to where to deposit the money and what to do and what not to do. But those are the 6 accounts we're going to be worried about, and you want to have at least 3 bank accounts. Tell me, but what about an account for investing and the account for paying off debt? The answer is, though, an account for charity. The answer is those aren't really like bank account worthy because those are pretty much just expenses. So when you get paid, it lands in the landing account. You either pay the debt, you either invest it into the investment account, or you either just give it to charity. You don't need a separate whole bank account for it, okay? That's the idea. But you do want to keep your expenses separate from your fund because those 2 things always seem to get mixed up for some reason. Now, the second thing, which is most important, is going to be knowing when to use 6x6 or 4x4. If you've ever been stuck, and I haven't, but I've seen some videos, heard some stories, when you put on 4x4, or in this case 6x6, things just get crazy. You're going to get out of that pothole or that slush of mud wherever you actually are. But the idea is most people hear these 6 accounts and they basically say in their brains, well, I'm just going to split my money 6 ways. The answer is no. Or I'm going to use every single one of them at the same time. The answer is no. Not all of them are going to be used actively at the same time. Some are going to be ongoing, meaning you're always going to use them, and some are going to be inactive and active. Some of them you'll have them actively, and some of them you won't need to activate them just yet. So just be basically going along with you. But having the accounts there makes a huge difference. So what exactly are you supposed to do? Well, the answer is this, okay? When you want to start using the system, you have 2 things you really want to be focused on. And those are the 2 E's in the system. It's going to be the emergency fund and the expense account. First, emergencies. When you're first getting started, just save up at least $500 to $1,000. That's going to be your new credit card. I say that because a lot of people tend to use credit cards as emergency accounts. I think that's a terrible idea because you're basically digging yourself into a deeper hole. Why is that? Because I just got into a car crash. I need to get my car replaced or repaired. It's $1,000, right? I'm gonna swipe my credit card and now I have payments I can't pay on time and now I'm being charged interest. It's a worse idea. Now my emergency just became a catastrophe. You see what I'm saying? So having that extra money on the side is going to alleviate or help you out when anything goes wrong. Now, if you use this at any point throughout this system, the answer is what you want to do is pause and rebuild and then continue, because things are always going to be happening. So you want to have this money separate, okay? And they're ready for you. So once you save up $500 to $1,000, great. But then you want to worry most importantly about your expenses. Here is where most people fall apart. Men, women, humans overall have more desires than they have income, than they have money. There is no one that can basically get all their desires with the money they have. You might say, Tommy, I know someone, Jeff Bezos. That guy can do whatever he wants. He can't buy America, can he? You see, there's always more things that you want than your income can actually help you with. That's why a lot of people, they get into debt. You have to be very careful with that. What I've learned is you want to limit your wants until you can make enough money passively to cover your wants, but you no longer have to work to actually buy the things you want, if you know what I mean. So the best budget that I have for you when it comes to having a way to spend the least amount of money on your expenses is going to be a bare bone budget. That's basically knowing exactly what your real expenses are, like your shelter, utility, your groceries, and your transportation costs. Now you might say, Tommy, what about my fun? The answer is that's why you have a separate fund account, but more on that later. But just know exactly how much you're spending on these 4 vital things that everyone needs. Now, Tommy, what if I have a medical bill and so on? The answer is you can have medical bills as part of your needs. That's no problem. But just put it in there and know what your vital things are and how much that actually is. My advice is try to keep that below 70% of your income. So what exactly do you do right now? If I were to get paid right now, what would I do? The answer is there are several ways to go about this. So I'm going to provide with you guys with basically 3. 1 is what I recommend. 2 is what the richest man in Babylon says. And 3 is what I actually do right now. But remember, okay, people have different stages in life. So it all depends on what stage you're actually in. If you're trying to get out of debt, you're not going to be doing what I'm doing right now because that's not my priority, okay? If you're trying to invest a ton of money, you won't be doing what I'm doing because that's not what I'm trying to do right now. But for the most part, it's just a routine and it's probably going to work for most of you. But number 1 is going to be what I recommend. If you are in debt, then what you want to do is keep your expenses as low as possible, okay? Take 5% of what you actually make, use that for fun, and then the rest of your money, don't invest. That's not what I'm telling you to do. The rest of your money, use 100% of it to save up your first $500 to $1,000 and put that into your emergency account. Once you have that, use the rest of the money to basically pay off your debt as fast as possible, excluding a mortgage if you actually have one. If you've done that, do everything the same, okay? Expenses low, 5% for fun, the rest of the money, use it to build up a full-blown emergency account of 3 to 6 months. Once you've done that, same thing, low expenses, 5% for fun, use the rest of the money and split it this way. 10% for your investments to 20%, okay? And then the rest of the money for saving up for a home. If you already have a home or if you bought a home, then just use the rest of the money to pay that home off as fast as possible. The whole idea is with this system of when you actually get paid and your priorities and what you want to do is basically, Cover your bills, your core necessities. Don't have them as large as possible because basically you can't get rich that way, but then have some fun on the side. Just take 5%, use that for fun, buy some stuff, but I do recommend instead of buying things, buy things that give you concurrent experiences or just buy experiences, okay? Here's what I mean. Instead of saying, you know what I'm gonna buy? I'm going to buy a new purse. You basically just have the purse. But if you buy something that you can use all the time, you'll remember that. If you go somewhere and you spend that money on traveling somewhere, whatever you want to do, then you'll remember that experience. Now, do I recommend you save that 5% to do something big? The answer is no. I recommend you try to spend that 5% every single time you get paid as fast as possible, no more than a month, because that 5% is going to help you keep going, okay? That's the idea, okay? So that's what I would do, and that's what I recommend as far as a system when it comes to what to do when I actually get paid. So to just summarize here, get rid of debt, save for emergencies, invest, at the same time save up for a home or pay off a home. That's the core idea. It sounds simple, and it is simple, but it can take decades to actually get done with it, or a decade in 5 years for the most part. Now, here's what the richest man in Babylon recommends you actually do when you actually get paid. The idea is save 10% and use that money for investing, okay? For making more money into things you fully understand that don't put your capital at risk and that is going to multiply at a good rate. Now, grab 20% and use that for paying off debt. And then try to basically live on less than 70% of your income. That's the core idea, okay? So you always have that same thing. And the same thing is basically live below your means. If you cannot live below your means, you won't have any extra money to actually put to work. And putting money to work is so important because once money is working for you, those are hours that you don't have to work yourself for money. That's the core idea. Now, the third thing is what I actually do right now. Because I already have a fully funded emergency account, because I have no debt, because I have enough cash to purchase a home that I actually want to purchase, and because I have enough investments to basically cover all of my expenses, what I basically do is when I get paid, I take out my expenses, what my base needs basically are, and I use the rest just for savings because I'm saving up to buy a home or a property that I like a lot more. That's the idea. So do I recommend you do that? The answer is if you have the cash and you've done everything else, yeah. But that's the core idea, guys, okay? Your main focus should basically be on managing your money correctly so you don't spend more than you make and then use the surplus to basically invest or paying off things or saving up for emergencies. That's what I would basically do if I'm getting paid today. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it helps you. Share it with a friend if you think it'll be valuable to them too. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching and peace. Subscribe to the channel.